and the Johannesburg residents complaining that they have been subjected to at least 10 to 11 hours of load shedding. CEO, thank you once again for staying with us, even though you are on the telephone line right now. And we were cut short at a point where I was suggesting to you that power outages are one thing, but when load shedding was kept at precision, for example, in the area I stay, which is in the Park Moor block, on Saturday, I can tell you that that area was kept that schedule was kept to its precision without any fail. Are you still arguing that this was a power outage as opposed to load shedding?
So, yeah, I do apologize for the previous connection issue. There is no argument from my side. What I was clarifying was we do need to distinguish between outages and load shedding. Now, in terms of what you're referring to this weekend, we were on stage 6 in terms of load shedding. And with stage 6, you're definitely going to lose 10 hours or more of electricity, because if you look at the amount of megawatts that we need to give over to Eskom, so the higher the stages, the more the megawatts we need to give to Eskom side. So definitely stage 6, you're looking at 10 hours or more.
Okay, and so it does seem to be a city power issue, therefore, that the higher the stages go, the more we are going to be deprived of electricity as Johannesburg residents. Just explain then, CEO, what happened in the areas where you simply had a power outage, because there were, once again, instances where, for example, early hours of this morning, the power went from 6 p.m. all the way up until, in fact, as we speak right now, one of the areas has not been restored. What's going on?
All right. So also just to clarify on the earlier issue, right? So the higher the stages, the more megawatts we give, and it is not a city power issue. It is an Eskom issue. So whether you would be in an Eskom area, a city power area, a municipal area, the exact hours of load shedding would therefore be the same. What may be different is how it gets scheduled. But then on the other issue in terms of outages, you're quite right. I think over the weekend we had a number of outages across the city of Johannesburg. And I think just to create a bit of context, we are supposed to ideally get our customers on within 24 hours. That is the benchmark. That is the standard. But it does happen that the nature of the outage itself requires more work to be done on the system. Usually outages that are prolonged will be outages where we are supposed to locate a fault. So at that point in time, we're not even sure where the fault is in the system. And this is where we need to, with our fault location machines, walk the ground so that we can identify where that fault is. And sometimes that can take longer because you find that the cables themselves, they run through buildings. We've got access issues. There could be a number of reasons. Or you may find that you've got certain equipment maybe that has bent down, or you may find that we've got certain vandalism that we're dealing with. So when you've got outages of that nature, we cannot be able to restore that within 24 hours just because of the amount of work that needs to happen.
Yeah, and you remind me of the long-standing complaint from your side that whenever Eskom implements higher stages of load shedding, it means that you, on your side, your equipment is not designed to handle the switch-off, switch-on element. And therefore, this was, I would have thought, precisely the reason why you said you wanted to take over from Eskom in terms of the scheduling of load shedding. Is that working?
As yes, it's working. And case in point is we've got 8 areas at City Power. And I must say that in 6 of the areas, we were managing our load shedding schedule without a hitch. We did find ourselves with challenges in the 2 areas, and to be precise, that's the Roodepoort and the Randburg area. And the reasons why we have challenges in those areas, in the main, is the theft and vandalism that happens in between the load shedding schedules. And it's very high, predominantly in Roodepoort and Randburg. But also, Roodepoort is the oldest network that we have. And we're talking about transformers of over 90 years, whereas the useful life of a transformer is supposed to be 35 years. So you find that this equipment, old as it is, it really cannot cope with the frequent switching on and switching off. Now, compounding that is the fact that in between load shedding, we've got very little time for our technicians to be able to do any meaningful work. But if we are in control of the load shedding schedule, we are able to make an executive decision to exclude a particular area so that we can fix what is wrong, and then we can then be able to get them back on. But if Eskom is doing that load shedding for us, we are not able to. So we came into this decision last year, December, with the floods. You would remember we were battling really to restore certain customers, because we depended on Eskom to do that load shedding. Whereas if we were doing the load shedding ourselves, we would have the flexibility to be able to exclude certain areas so that our technicians can work in line with the safety regulations.
Yeah, Ms. Tshifularo, talk to us then about the scheduling itself. Lots of complaints about the frequency, even if we are on lower stages of load shedding, but the areas you've mentioned, and I happen to be in the Randburg area, that kind of frequency of load shedding is counter to exactly what you are saying, that people being constantly switched on and off, it works counter to the design of your machines. Surely there is something wrong there. Is that being fixed or not?
It's definitely fixable. So let me reiterate, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, we believe that the 2-hour scheduling is the best under the circumstances. What we've done, though, with the schedule is we have guaranteed that in between the load shedding, you will have an interval or a break at a minimum of 6 hours and at a maximum of 14 hours, depending on the stage. So stage 1 to stage 2 is those 2 hours at a time, but it will not be frequent. We have redesigned our schedule so that we can then give that 6 hours to 14 hours in between. However, when it comes to higher stages of load shedding, and looking at our own equipment and looking at what we are faced with, the incidence of theft and vandalism and so on, we are reviewing that. So it means if we're on stage 5 or stage 6, or if it should happen that we go up to even 7 and 8, we are going to communicate new schedules where we can be seen to be even doing 4 hours at a time as opposed to the 2 hours. So we are in the process of revising that so that it's customer friendly at the end of the day. So we don't want to just design it for our own convenience, but we are designing it also with the customers in mind. And we take the feedback that if this kind of scheduling is not working, we have to take ownership and responsibility for that, and we need to be able to revise it. So in summary, stage 1 to stage 4, we will stick to the 2 hours, but there will be breaks in between 6 and 14 hours. And then stage 5 upwards, we are revising that so that it could also be the 4 hours as opposed to the more frequent 2 hours, 2 hours.
All right. Very briefly, in this last question, if you can, am I correct to understand that there is going to be a meeting between yourselves, City Power, and Eskom, specifically relating to the load shedding schedule? Are they taking back power, or you remain in charge of the Johannesburg schedule?
We remain in charge of the Johannesburg scheduling. I am not aware of a request from Eskom to take it over at this point in time. So we remain in charge of it.
All right. Tshifularo Mashava, let me thank you very much for your time, CEO of City Power. Okay.